Okay, so a little bit back, I made a video that was entitled, I forget exactly what the title was, but it was rule changes that I wanted to see implemented that I essentially knew had no chance of ever being implemented. Just kind of a fun exercise of me being silly and coming up with new ideas. But it got me thinking, maybe I should do the opposite. These are 10 rule changes that I think actually have a chance of being implemented. I don't know if they all will. I don't know which ones will and which ones won't. But I do feel like in 10 years, hopefully at least for me, some of these will be implemented. And there's a chance that each one of them could be implemented. So that's what we're going to do. Let's just get into the list. These are in no particular order. Let's just start off with the first one. First is the fumble out of the back of the end zone. I didn't know exactly what to title this rule, but we all know the situation, right? It is a player with a ball carrier is going towards the end zone. Usually they reach out to try and get to the end zone. The ball gets knocked out, and the rule is if it gets knocked out and lands out of bounds at the 1-inch line, then you keep the ball, and you keep the ball at the 1-inch line. However, if it gets knocked out and goes past the 1-inch line and goes past the end zone, then it is a turnover and the other team gets the ball and gets it all the way at the 20-yard line. That feels weird. It feels like kind of arbitrary that if it goes one place, then it's one rule, and if it just goes a little bit further, it's a completely different outcome, and like massively different outcome. Games are won or lost on that kind of outcome. Personally, my fix, and this is one that wouldn't be fixed, is, and I feel like people never take it this way, but I kind of like the idea of if you fumble fumble on the sideline in general, if you don't recover it, the other team just gets the ball. Let's just do it that way, make things more exciting. Turnovers are fun, right? So let's do it that way. If we don't want to do it that way, though, it does seem like the obvious fix is just if you fumble out of the if you fumble and the ball goes out of the end zone, then you just keep possession where you fumbled it. So if you fumbled at the 2-yard line, then you still get it at the 2-yard line, right? That feels like the obvious fix, and I think it's probably fair. It just feels a very arbitrary rule of how it is right now. Some people like the weirdness of it, but I would like to have more consistency there. Rule change number 2 is, as of right now, you can't return a muff punt. This is simple enough. I think you should be able to return it. I think it's exciting because, again, the rule is if the opposing team punts the ball to you and you do not field it cleanly, you drop it, the opposing team can fall on the ball and they can maintain possession, but they can't pick up the ball and continue moving from that point forward. All they can do is recover the fumble. Now, if you catch the ball and you start running and then you fumble, then the opposing team can pick it up and start running, but just a muff punt you can't return. I don't know. I feel like it'd be more exciting if you could return a muff punt. I don't really get why that's a rule, so I would just get rid of that rule. Also, I'm going to go with clarify quarterback slide protection. Now, there's a lot of quarterback protection rules that I think people would change. Personally, I don't hate that we go a little bit overboard trying to protect quarterbacks. I think it's probably better to err on the side of being too cautious than not cautious enough. I watch hockey too, and it drives me crazy how they just let guys get concussed there and don't do anything about it. I like that the NFL is doing stuff about it, even if they can go a little bit too far, and even if we're being honest, the reason they do it is just to protect their player or to protect that asset set, not necessarily help out health. But hey, either way, I like that happens. So I'm not as mad about some of these roughing the passer stuff, but the sliding stuff, that just needs to be clarified. I think there needs to be an actual how there's a rule where if you throw the ball, the opposing player has 2 steps and then they have to lay off. If they hit you before 2 steps, then it's okay. If it's after 2 steps, then it's not okay. I think something very similar for the sliding has to happen. Like something along the lines of if you slide, and if the opposing player is this many yards away, then it's okay. If not, something like that. Make it very clear. I don't know exactly what you would do, and I think that there's several fixes that I'd be fine with. I just want a very clear rule because I think that would help kind of get rid of some of these gray area plays like we saw in the Chiefs-Texans game. Next up is turn kickoff into punt / 4th and 15 play. It's a bit of an exotic rule change, but it is one that the NFL has tinkered with. Here is what I think it would be. So if you're a little confused, Greg Schiano actually suggested this a while back, and I think it's kind of brilliant. So essentially what the rule change would be is that instead of the kickoff, which is a dangerous play, and it's, it's fun and it's ceremonial, but it's a dangerous play, and it's usually not that interesting either. You instead have a punting play that starts every new drive. You just essentially, it's if you score points, then you keep possession, but it's a 4th down and 15, and you are in position where if you punt the ball, the opposing team would return it at about the 20 to 25 yard line. This would do a couple things. A, it would create punts instead of kickoffs. Punts are usually a lot more interesting to watch than kickoffs, so you have that aspect. And 2, it means that now we have an opportunity for onside kicks. For one thing, you could go with a fake punt. So now we have that fake aspect of the onside kick back in play where we wouldn't have it earlier. And also, you can just straight up go for it. It's 4th and 15. You wouldn't do that in almost every situation, but if it's desperation time, now we get to see the offense actually run a play. We get to see Josh Allen try and see if he can save the day instead of seeing if, the way it is now, the kicker is just going to kick the ball at a special teamer and hope the special teamer screws it up, and then you can return it. To me, that's far more interesting. Again, things like this have been pitched. They haven't been passed yet, but I'm in favor of it. I think it would make things more interesting. Next up, a bit more of a simple one, a bit more of an obvious one. Make less automatic first down plays. So what I mean by this is, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is the Lions did pitch something like this. It didn't get approved, but it shows there at least is some talk of it, which essentially means, for example, defensive holding, as of it is right now, it's an automatic 5-yard penalty. I think you get rid of, or 5 yards and an automatic first down. I think you get rid of the automatic first down aspect of it. Maybe you make it 10 yards to make it even. Something like that, I think, is more interesting. I get frustrated when it's a 3rd and 20 and a 5-yard penalty gives them the first down, right? If it was up to me, I've pitched before, get rid of automatic first downs altogether. If the yardage isn't enough, then the yardage isn't enough. I kind of like that, but that's what I think, but that probably would never happen. But I think making less automatic first downs would probably make it feel a little bit better, because then if it's I don't think anyone minds too much if like an offsides creates a first down. That people view that as like a dumb play, but the defensive holding can be frustrating. Halfway through the list now, this is the 6th one we're talking about. Enforce the Jawan Taylor play. So if you don't know, Jawan Taylor does a few things that people criticize, but one of the things people criticize him for is essentially the way his stance is when he moves his right foot before he moves his left foot. Essentially, he's getting away with false starting every play. Now, he isn't the only guy who does this. Lane Johnson does this a lot as well. Taylor just kind of gets most of the criticism because he plays for the Chiefs. He didn't usually get this criticism before he played with the Chiefs, but other guys do it as well. And essentially, I think just enforce that. Don't let guys false start. If they start moving, even if it's their right leg in that specific stance, still just enforce it and throw the flag when it happens. Don't let guys move early. That feels like a simple enough one. It's in the rules as is. Just start enforcing it. Number 7, this might be a controversial one for some people, but I am a believer and I think the Tush push should be banned. I've made videos on it when we were doing that whole debacle, so you can go check that out if you want. But essentially, I just think it's a boring play, and on a 4th down and 1, I want to be on the edge of my seat instead of already heading to grab a beer from the fridge because you already know how it's going to go, right? It's like an extra point at that point when it could be the most exciting play ever. One thing I thought of is we remember the Malcolm Butler interception. That play wouldn't happen today because they would have just tush pushed, right? So, well, maybe they still would have done it, and everyone would have said, hey, why didn't you tush push instead of why didn't you give the ball to Marshawn Lynch? But you get the idea. It's purely entertainment. I don't think it's player safety. If you like watching the tush push, okay, more power to you. We just disagree. But, yeah, I would ban it. That is my personal opinion. I think it will ultimately get banned sooner rather than later, but at least for the Eagles fans, I'm sure they're happy it hasn't been banned yet. Next up is taunting. This is kind of an obvious one. I just think taunting shouldn't be a penalty. At the very least, it should be saved for very extreme circumstances, like when it's getting over the top. I like the idea of unsportsmanlike conduct, where you can, if someone's saying something in a way, you can throw the flag that way. But like, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiver, Jalen McMillan, he just did like that thing after a first down. Then he gets called for taunting, and they go 15 yards back. The fact that it's such a powerful penalty as well of a 15-yard penalty. Like, I think 5 yards would do the trick, right? Like, 5 yards would be enough to deter people from doing that. Why do we need to make it 15 yards? That whole thing is just, it's annoying, and I never feel good about it. Even when it helps my favorite team, I never feel good about it. I would get rid of that one. Next up, might be stretching a little bit of the realism here. I'm trying to think of things that like at least have a chance of potentially passing. And there is, every time I look at like the rules people hate, one rule people always hate is how pass interference is a spot foul. But you kind of have to make it a spot foul, right? Because if you throw the ball 50 yards down the field and a guy grabs and holds on and, knocks the receiver away, okay, well, now it's only going to be a 15-yard penalty if it's not a spot foul. So you kind of have to make it a spot foul unless you simply just add a 15-yard pass interference option. So essentially, it would come down to the ref's discretion of 15 yards, or it could be a spot foul if they feel like it's egregious enough. So it would always be a minimum of 15 yards. But if it's further down the field, you could extend it and make it more than that. I think that would be interesting. I think there is a world where the NFL looks into something like that. So if it's a pass interference, but not like the most egregious one you've ever seen, or, again, why exactly would you do this? I think, to me, the way I would look at something like this and the way I would differentiate the 15-yard versus the spot foul is if the spot foul would be if it felt more likely than not that the receiver was going to catch the football, then I would say it's a spot foul. If it didn't feel that way but was still pass interference, then I think you just make it to 15 yards. So, for example, the underthrown deep ball that results in a pass interference, to me, you have to call that pass interference. You're interfering from a guy trying to make the catch, even if it is due to the underthrown football. I think you have to call it that. But at least in this scenario, you could just make it 15 yards instead of a spot foul. It'd be hard to get the logistics down, and maybe that's why it wouldn't happen. But I think at least try and figure it out. I think you can maybe iron it out. But yeah, that's number 9 on this list. And let's go to number 10. Everything can be looked at in an expedited review, which feels fair. Like, I don't get really why this isn't the case at all. So again, just to clarify what I'm saying, I'm simply talking about expedited reviews because there are several different types of reviews. There is the review where the coach throws a challenge flag and then the refs will look at the play as long as it takes until they have a clear conclusion. But then there are expedited reviews, which is immediately after a play happens, they will look at things such as where the ball stopped, was it a catch, was it not a catch, and just as the team is going for the next play, every now and then someone will kind of buzz down to an official and say, hey, actually, that was a catch instead of not a catch, so let's get lined up and do it that way. It's been a very positive thing for the NFL. More plays have been corrected, and it's actually helped pace of play because there's been less challenges. Now, again, they only do this for certain things. For some pass interference things, they can look at this, but not for every pass interference thing. I just think, for some roughing the passer thing, they can do this, but not every roughing the passer thing. I just think it should be for everything. I think that if, everything can be looked at in the expedited review. Now, it might take more time to adjust something, and because of that, you're not going to be able to overturn every thing with the expedited review, but just make it an option, right? The way I want this expedited review process to work is essentially there's just another official who is in the booth instead of on the field, but everything is the same. They can look at it and call down and say, hey, actually there was a penalty, let's throw the flag, or hey, actually let's pick it up, it wasn't a penalty. I think the ultimate example was, if you remember, the Rams-Vikings regular season game. The Vikings are trying to see if they can have one final possession to tie the game. Late in the game, Sam Darnold gets pulled down by the face mask in the end zone. Official misses it in real time. It's ruled a safety, and the Vikings lose. I think that's a perfect example of why expedited review should be. That's something that expedited review should be able to look at and say, hey, you can, let's. It was a face mask. Let's, throw the flag and go from there. To me, I think that should be the case for everything. So, yeah, those are 10 rule changes that I would make. I'm sure you have your disagreements, so let me know which ones do you disagree with me on. And also, hey, is there anything that I didn't bring up that you would like to hear, that maybe you would like to have changed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.